Every media buyer using ChatGPT just became inefficient overnight. Google just dropped Gemini 3 and it does something that no other AI can do. It actually sees and understands your Google Ads account. I'm Dave, and in the past year, I've built ad op systems that have saved hundreds of hours for myself and my clients. Today, I'm showing you 3 Gemini features that will fundamentally change how you run ads. All right, so let's cut through the noise first. First, Generative UI. It doesn't give you just text anymore. It builds actual interactive tools and apps based on what you ask. Second, agent mode. You can actually go into your Gmail, your calendar, your Google Drive, and do multi-step tasks autonomously. Third, Google Anti-Gravity. This is their new code IDE that can build entire applications from a single sentence. But before you think this is just Google playing catch up, let me show you what I actually tested. Because of the gap between what they claim and what actually works, that's where the truth lies. Let's start with what Gemini 3 Pro actually delivers. Google's calling it its most intelligent model. They're claiming it beats GPT-5 Pro, Claude Sonnet 4.5, and any other LLM on the market in all the major benchmarks. Here are the numbers they're very proud of. On the LM Arena leaderboard, Gemini 3 Pro scores 1501 ELO. That puts it ahead of any other model currently available, and it's also the first time a model has crossed the 1500 threshold. On GPQA Diamond, which tests PhD level science reasoning, it hits 91.9%. That beats GPT 5.1's 87.6%. On Humanity's Last Exam, a benchmark testing multi-step reasoning and expert level knowledge, Gemini 3 scores 37.5% without any tools. Second place, GPT-5 Pro at 31.6%. Now, I'm not usually a benchmark guy. Most of these tests don't correlate with what we actually need to use AI for. But when you see a model jump this far ahead across so many different benchmarks, that definitely says something. The big shift with Gemini 3 is something they're calling Generative UI, or Generative Interfaces. Instead of just giving you text or code, Gemini can now generate entire interactive experiences. You get a mortgage calculator, it'll build one with working sliders. Want to understand the 3-body problem in physics? It'll create a live simulation you can manipulate. It generates an interactive spreadsheet that recalculates it in real time. This isn't about making pretty visuals. It's about AI understanding your intent well enough for it to build the actual tool you need and not just describe it. All right, so let's get into the ad buying use cases. First, I'm gonna ask Gemini 3 to create a lead generation landing page for a B2B SaaS client. The brief is gonna be a high converting design for enterprise software demos, trust signals above the fold, benefit driven copy, multiple conversion points, and the target audience is mid-market IT directors. It looks like first it builds out the code and then eventually it starts showing you the preview once it's ready. I'm also using canvas mode, which seems like the ideal mode to use whenever you're building any applications in Gemini 3. All right, so here we have it. Pretty solid landing page, clear call to action, and also a way to learn more about the product. So, the way I visualize this working for ad buying is if you have a current landing page and you're planning on running, CRO tests or even giving the client ideas on what changes they could do, this could be a great tool to visually show that and also, to kind of speed up the process of those tests being ran. So definitely a really cool tool. And then another use case that I think could work with this is to create interesting experiences post ad click. For example, it could be an interactive demonstration of the product, or it could be some kind of like gamified version of the previous experience, which should end up resulting in higher engagement and maybe even a higher conversion rate. The key point here is now you have another strong tool at your disposal. Now the main limiter is your creativity as opposed to your technical knowledge. So yeah, there's multiple working pages here. And this is just from the first prompt. There's probably many more optimizations that could be done if you keep going back and forth with it. I'm gonna ask it to create an interactive demo that users can come to after seeing an ad. All right, so here is the interactive app it made. We created a live demo page, and now if we go into this, it looks like it's showing, a scenario that one of the prospects might be experiencing, critical security alert, AWS S3 bucket finance logs backup has public read access enabled. This violates, policy SEC 204, investigate issue. Okay, so, this is the problem. Then click this auto remediate and boom, issue's fixed. So that is showing what this specific solution is able to do. So, think of any possible scenario, even with supplements, right? It could be someone that's having some kind of stomach pain. We take, this product and it's like an animation that shows the person taking the product and, they feel better. And maybe it zooms into the gut and shows like the science behind what is happening. So I think there's a lot of cool post-click experiences that you could now play around with. And again, even though you're an ad buyer, you could still, have your hands and your, input in a lot of these places, especially if you, bring up like Gemini 3 into the conversation with the client or with, the company that you work at. I think the sky's the limit really in what you're able to do now. So another use case with generative UI is client presentations, right? So in this example, I'm going to ask it to build a campaign pitch deck for a fictional Google Ads account. I want it to have 7 slides, current account performance, opportunity areas, proposed campaign structure, budget allocation, and expected ROI. So let's get into it and see what it does.
2,000 years later.
So it does look like it takes a decent amount of time. I've been just staring at the wall for the past 5 minutes waiting for this to finish. I ended up relaunching it with the canvas mode on to see if that would speed it up. I'm gonna get the pro version to see if that is the reason why it's so slow. All right, so it finally finished the pitch deck. Even after I purchased Pro, it still took like a decent amount of time. It was a bit quicker, so maybe that's how they get you to upgrade, is they just make the free version incredibly slow. But if I look into this, we're gonna explore it together. So far, pretty nice. Basically replaces tools like Gamma that create those decks for you. And again, the format is pretty clean. I didn't give it a lot of direction, and I'm sure after a couple of iterations, it could look exactly like, your specific agency or your company, and have your logo in it and just make it look very professional. So, we have executive summary with the challenge in the solution, current state, desired state. Looks like it did a current performance audit where we can win, segment and scale structure. So yeah, it looks all right, nothing insane. I am surprised it took so much time. Like the more interactive and the more complicated apps seem to have generated quicker. But again, this is a pretty good start. And a good workflow would be either sharing your current decks and saying, hey, literally replicate this or iterate on it. And also, you could use the general Gemini 3 model to strategize what each slide should have. And then once you finalize that, then you could say, hey, now make the deck for me, right? And then once this is done, you could probably edit any text here or any of the graphics. You could export this, and you also have the code of it. So, if you want to, again, embed this somewhere or work with it in other capacities, there's many different ways that you could approach it. All right, so now it's the agent mode that connects to your Google Workspace. That means Gmail, Google Drive, Calendar, the whole ecosystem. And it doesn't just read, it also could perform tasks. All right, so in order to use this, you just go to the tab that you want to be in, and then there's gonna be this little icon on the top right. And if you click into it, this is agent mode. We could ask it to organize the inbox. So it says I can't directly organize your inbox, but I can guide you the best way to leverage, Gmail's powerful tools. Let's see if I could actually make it perform a task for me.
Write follow-up email for me to review for someone that requested a template.
All right, so you know it's in agent mode when there's like this blue box that's around the screen. That means like it's currently, seeing what you're seeing, and it should also be able to like move around and change things. Very similar to Perplexity's Comet and also ChatGPT's Atlas. Okay, so this looks good. So I'm gonna ask it to find a specific email and send the template that I made after I prove it. Okay, so it has no clue how to find that email. So I'm gonna give it to it. All right, can be easier than this. If it still doesn't work, then clearly, the agent mode isn't as good as I thought it would be. Okay, so crafted an email and it now knows who to send it to. Let's have it send. All right, so I'm in apps and it looks like I could toggle on Google Workspace. One thing that I'm noticing is it does take a decent amount of time to think, longer than ChatGPT and Claude, especially for like very simple questions. What I discovered is that the agent mode isn't really an agent mode because it doesn't actually do actions for you. It has context of the windows you're in, which is a pretty big improvement, but in order to actually like make things happen, you're gonna have to do it yourself, at least in the current state. So Comet and Atlas are still more superior web browsers in that regard. So I have a current prospect I'm in talks with. Let's see if it comes up with a good follow-up email I could send if I don't hear back from them in a week. So I think it's pretty bad because it's super long and I don't think he would want to even read all that. So I'm not too impressed with this specific use case. So another use case for the agent mode is to actually run account audits. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up an account here that I have, and I'm going to ask it to just do a general overview and find any areas of improvement that could be made. Looks like it gave me suggestions across many different levels of the account. I'm going to ask to see if it has visibility into different tabs in the account and not just the page that I'm on. So it looks like a very big limitation is that it only sees the overview page, which I'm on, and it can't really, dig around any specific pages like campaigns, ad groups, ads, etc. So I asked it to see if there's any keywords I should trim in the specific search campaign, and it gave me like general feedback of because this is a broad campaign, you don't need to do too much aggressive trimming. Instead, you focus on negative keywords, but it did give me one that it would suggest to trim based on the higher cost per conversion. The great thing about the agent mode is you no longer have to keep sending screenshots to the LM. If you're using Gemini, it will literally just see the tab you're on and you could go straight to asking the questions that you need to. So I'm in a specific ad here and I'm going to ask it to give me any ad copy optimization ideas. So it's suggesting to pin one of the headlines to position 1 that has the strongest, most unique headline, maximize call to action. So it is giving me a couple copy suggestions here. Limited time promotion. So it says your description is excellent. All use the 90 character limit effectively. Ensure your headlines also hit the USPs. So, unlock your car's equity, most trusted car lease buyout. These are pretty good headlines. It's also giving me suggestions on other parts of the ad that I could optimize, like utilizing the display path and also, asset optimization with site links and the other fields. I'm curious how the ads advisor will perform against the Gemini agent. So I'm going to ask it the same exact question of give me ad copy optimization ideas, and actually just tells me to go directly to support. So that tool is clearly not made for the same thing. This is Google's answer to Cursor and Windsor. It's a VS Code fork that lets you build applications just by describing them. So the big difference between the canvas feature we looked at earlier and this new anti-gravity feature is Canvas is more of a collaborative editor that, builds more simple apps, while anti-gravity is a fully autonomous software factory where AI agents build, run, and test more complex applications. So here, you could actually build like very crazy stuff that you could implement in your workflows or as a service, right? So here's how you install it. You go to antigravity.google and then you just download the IDE. All right, we're now opening up anti-gravity and we could take a look at how to start stuff. So assume you're a complete beginner. Let's just do start fresh and select your layout, whatever is recommended. Sign into Google. All right, so now you've been authenticated. Let's start the fun stuff. One of the projects that I recently built was a zero spend tracker. And I want to see if I could build that out here. So I'm going to ask it to build out a tool that will check all the campaigns hourly to see if the spend is ever less than $1. And if so, it should send me an email alert telling me which campaign in which account has that specific spend threshold that was met and give me a link to go to it and see what's going on. So it looks like it wants me to add all the credentials. I'm going to see if I could, circumvent that with OAuth 2 authorization, which means that it will use the scopes that my Gmail account has. If that works, that would be a complete revolution in the way we could use tools. All right, so we do have exciting news. It did end up switching the plan to use browser automation, which means that no API credentials will be necessary. So it says I'm going to just log in once with the browser window and the tool will save the session. So we'll see how that works. All right. So it looks like I just need to review the plan, and if everything is good, I just go ahead and tell it to implement it. So I'm going to say that this works. Let's do it. All right, so now it's diving into the implementation phase, and we're going to wait for it to finish the app, and we could take a look at it. All right, it looks like it finished building the monitor. We're going to go ahead and check it out. All right, it looks like we're waiting on it to finish installing the extensions. All right, so I spent around 50 minutes or so trying to build a zero spend tracker, and it's kind of good, kind of not. Like, I think the idea is, can we replace N8N and Replit with one core builder? And I think, if I spent some more time on it, it could get there. The browser authentication did work. It was able to see which accounts I have, and it was able to see that, all the campaigns that I have in there have zero spend. But the problems is one, like the actual dashboard, it just needs some work with the CSS elements. Like, the cool thing is, like, these are all the right campaigns in the account, and all it did was open up a browser, and it had me just log in, and it's going to save that cookie for, several weeks, which is a pretty good solution, because the other alternative is this whole Google Ads API setup, which is just really painstaking and annoying to set up. So I was pretty happy with the 50-minute sprint that I did, like what I was able to achieve. I just hit a limit with how much tokens I have for the model, and for some reason it does not let me change to any other ones besides Gemini, and Gemini is capped out. So obviously, like, not a perfect overview of the anti-gravity tool, but I would say there is a slight technical learning curve with this tool. But once you just give it a couple of tries, you'll see that it will guide you through a lot of the process. An engineer would probably understand a lot better what's going on, but as a non-technical ad buyer, you could still make some cool projects here. All right, so the verdict is that Gemini 3 is very powerful. You definitely need to go and try it out. It's very easy to try it out. You literally just search it up and you'll get the free version of it to play around with and try the different use cases we talked about here and any other ones that you come up with. While we're in the AI race, there's no one LLM that has like a big advantage over the other ones. They're gonna keep overlapping each other. And as they do, it's my job to help you stay up to date on the latest developments and how it could help us get better results for the accounts that we manage. Make sure to subscribe if you want more overviews like this. And I need to go to bed because it is past midnight and I have a flight tomorrow at 6 a.m. So I'm gonna try to get some sleep. I'll see you.